District Board of Directors special session to order. It is 5:37 p.m. So we'll start with the flag salute. If you can, you're welcome to join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll do a roll call for the meeting this evening. I'm Mark Everett, School Board Chair. Brad Bafaro.
Brad Farrell, Vice Chair.
Okay. Valerie Ingram.
Here.
Okay. Narce.
Here.
And Kate.
Here.
Okay, great. Thank you. To my agenda here. Oh. Yeah, I think. Approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. I'm a yes. Narce?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
And Brad?
Yes.
Thank you. Unscheduled public appearance. Is there any unscheduled public appearance this evening, Kathy?
No, there are none.
Okay, thank you. All right, we move right into the only item on the agenda this evening, which is an action item. It's the amendment to bond election resolution 21-22 R05, and that'll be Mr. Parker.
Great. We're bringing to you tonight an adjustment, and then we've also did some recent polling. So we're going to have Jeremy Wright and Ben Patinkin from Patinkin Research present some of the results from that. We're bringing this to you. We're asking for a lower amount. We feel like this will be better. I mean, through our polling, we feel like this is going to be a better approach to this bond. You've got the description of the agenda item there. I'm going to kind of turn it to Jeremy and to Ben to kind of just talk through the polling that we saw, and then we'll come back.
Good evening, everyone. Before Ben jumps into the actual polling presentation, I just wanted to touch on what Dave just said a little bit. I think we looked at, based on your polling this spring and then just the conditions on the ground, working with folks all over the Portland metro area as well as other places. We have to be mindful of costs and costs to the voter. And we think the proposal, the price point before you is a more accessible and attainable opportunity, and still achieves many of the goals that you in the Bond Development Committee set out to set forward and brought before this board. And I'll let Ben jump in and talk a little bit about the polling that we literally just finished last week.
Okay, if I can be allowed to share my screen, I can bring up the slides.
Hang on. Who's our Enrique or we're still disabled on the screen sharing? Enrique, you there?
Oh, there we go. Now I can talk. Sorry, I wasn't hearing.
We need the host be able to share screens.
Let me see. Just a moment.
Ah, here we go. All right. So everyone should be able to see my screen, methodology section, a lot of fun information here. Hopefully I don't put you to sleep. So just a quick review of what we did. Let me put my cursor on here. We conducted a survey of 400 likely voters for the November general in the Forest Grove School District. The survey was conducted via telephone using professional interviewers. We used a voter sample, and the poll universe was diminished to reflect a likely November 2022 electorate. Interviews were conducted August 2 through 4. The survey builds and draws comparisons between an initial survey that I'm sure you all remember conducted April 26 to 28. Margin of error for the sample is plus or minus 4.9 percentage points. So when we go through the data as a whole, when you're looking at a number for the full electorate, it could be plus or minus 4.9%. When we start looking at smaller subgroups like men and women, the margin of error will increase because there are fewer people behind that cell, not 400, more like for women 210, men 190. So, and then we also refer to younger and older voters. Younger is under age 50, older is over age 50. I redefined those regions in 8 years when I turned age, well, Jesus, in 7 years when I turned age 50. I just had a birthday. It's depressing. Okay. So where things stand. We had this question in the last survey. So we can compare to the numbers right here. This question generally gets us a sense of how aware voters are of facility condition within your community. In this case, it's sort of counterintuitive. We want to see in a bond situation more people saying facilities are in fair or poor condition than in good or excellent. It's sort of like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, we want to show it's broken. So in this case, you have 47% of the electorate saying that facilities are net negative, fair or poor. Most of them are in the fair category. You have 27% saying facility condition is good or excellent. And then you have another 26% who just aren't sure. A lot of those are frankly seniors, people not involved in your schools or not going into your buildings. These numbers comport pretty darn well with what we saw back in April. There hasn't been much movement on opinion here. The important thing to note is that a yes vote correlates very strongly with negative perceptions of schools. And this is what I was talking about a moment ago. We want to have more people saying, oh gosh, we got to fix our schools or invest in our schools in order to drive up the yes vote. So moving people out of that 35% category, moving them of fair, moving them into the poor numbers, educating people who are in the don't know, getting them to move down is critically important as you think about your bond between now and November. So more education is warranted. The fact that you're at 47% is something that is a cautionary note in these data. This said, when we ask the bond caption in question, and you can see it over here, it reads like Sanskrit, and I apologize for that. It's what's required of us by the state of Oregon. But you have a 10-word caption, and that reads bonds to increase safety, security, replace school, update classrooms, technology. And then you have your question, shall district increase student safety technology, replace elementary school, repair, improve schools, issue 145 million in general obligation bonds, audits required. 10 words and 20 words, caption and question. And a lot of those are required words by the state. We have limited descriptive ability here. But the good news is you're at 55%. Generally speaking, we want to see bonds, well, any sort of ballot issue, whether it be statewide or local, tax or not tax, start with support above 50% for sure, generally trending more towards the mid 50s, and you're there. The intensity of feeling is fairly good at 30%, and that's compared to the April survey when it was only at 18. So you've had a lot of people shift into the strong support category over the course of the last few months. The why behind that is a little hard to say. I will note that when we were in the field back in late April of 2022, it was sort of right when the intense inflation was really starting to hit, if you can recall. I mean, we were starting to get a little bit of inflation before that, but this was really when it started getting bad. I think people have, they're not comfortable with it. They're certainly not happy with it, but they, I think, are getting used to it. And you're starting to see numbers sort of return to, I think, a little bit more of a normal. And the normal, and for you all, is that it's at 30% yes strong. I like that. There's a lot of undecideds. 1 in 5 voters are undecided right now. And the good news is that opposition from a bond perspective is pretty light. Less than 1/4 are opposed right now, and the intensity of feeling is very light at 15%. We generally want to see strong no at about 20% or less, 25% or less. You're well within that ballpark. So that's nice to see. And again, the overall net is up 5 points from where we were back in April. Again, a good trend to note here. Looking a little bit at the subgroups, so you get a sense of how your community is breaking out on this. There's a gender gap. That gender gap is almost always there. Women just generally are more supportive of school bonds, school levies, schools in general than are men. So you have a 42-point margin on the yes side. That's yes minus no amongst women, and you've got a 23-point margin amongst men, 50% minus 27. And just, I'll note throughout, we have on the far right-hand side in that darker blue column, we have the yes margin that you had back in April. And as you can see, just going up and down this, you have had positive movement across the board amongst every single subgroup, which again is a nice thing to note. People are coming around to being more supportive, particularly as was discussed with a lower bond ask. In terms of age, you have a definite age gap. Well, under age 50, it makes sense. They're more likely to be parents with kids in school. So they're going to be a little bit more supportive because they're in your facilities. They see the challenges. You have a 53-point margin amongst them. You're at 68% yes. That's wonderful. It's good to see. That's an improvement over what you had in April. I mean, again, just good data there. Voters over age 50, you are ahead by 18 points. This is a lot better than where you were back in April. You're still below a majority at 46%. As you start educating the community about the need here and the necessity, hopefully that number will start to increase, but this is a decent spot to be in. And then it makes sense that seniors, a lot of them are in fixed incomes, are going to be a little bit less supportive. But even here still, you've gone from minus 21 to plus 14. I'll take that any day. Educational attainment, again, this is typically standard. Those with a 4-year degree or more typically are more supportive of a bond than are those with a vocational degree or less. But even still, you've got solid double-digit margins of support in both groups. And then it's another sign that things are sort of, again, I hate to use the word normal because we're certainly not living in normal times, but the data is returning to more normal. Usually we see renters more supportive of any sort of tax than homeowners. Well, let me rephrase that. Usually we see renters more supportive of a property tax because generally speaking, they are less likely to believe they pay that property tax. Back in April, the numbers were very even. And that was, at the time, that was actually like not just your district. It was polling that Jeremy and I were seeing across Oregon, regardless of the community and the demographic. Renters were all of a sudden either less supportive of bonds or levies or on par with homeowners. This is more normal, where you have a 42-point margin with renters and a 29-point margin on the yes side amongst homeowners. Partisanship plays out as I would expect. Democrats haven't met a tax they don't like. Republicans are a little bit more skeptical of taxes, and it plays out here. So you've got a 5-point yes margin amongst Republicans, which is actually really good. It's nice to see that. It indicates a general sense of this is, a necessary thing. Democrats wildly supportive, and independents certainly leaning pretty darn heavily towards the yes side with 51% margin. Or excuse me, 51% in the yes side. Regionally, we've got it based on zip code. Cornelius, Forest Grove, a little bit more supportive in Forest Grove, but you've got, again, double-digit yes votes in either region. I would expect, as you go out and start educating and you start explaining that the one place where you're actually going to be replacing a school is in Cornelius, these numbers might end up shifting. You have a lot of people in the undecided column. who may be more amenable to this, knowing that there's going to be a serious investment within their community. Looking at parental status, this is great to see. 74% of parents say that they're voting yes right now, 16% no, 10% undecided, holding pretty much on par with what we had back in April. This is like the one spot where things remain steady. And I am skeptical that anyone could do better than 74% in any category. So this is just wonderful to see. Amongst former parents, you have a majority in favor now. Remember, you were down by 9 points back in April. You're now at plus 31. And then even amongst non-parents, never had kids in your school buildings, don't plan on it. You've gone from even to a 19-point margin. And then just looking at it based off of race and ethnicity, you have majorities, whether you be white or a person of color. Persons of color a little bit more supportive with a 45-point margin amongst them, 29% amongst Caucasians. We did ask a summary statement. It's here. I'll read it for you so you all don't go blind trying to squint at the screen. But this bond is designed to improve safety and security, emergency fire systems, reduce the use of unsecure and inefficient portable classrooms, conduct needed repairs, and meet future demand for classroom space. It replaces the outdated Cornelius Elementary School and adds classroom capacity. It repairs fire safety systems, adds a secure entryway to Neil Armstrong Middle School, strengthens structures for earthquake safety, adds security glass and doors to multiple schools, and improves air quality by updating and installing new HVAC systems and boilers. It's a long sentence. It expands physical education spaces to meet state mandates, adds classroom space to expand access to early learning and pre-K programs, and enhances high school career and vocational training opportunities. And you get this for a bond that's estimated to cost the average homeowner an additional $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed property value. When you lay it out and explain in detail what people are buying for your extra $1.50 per $1,000, you see some slight movement. It's within the margin of error. It goes from 55 to 57%. By the end of the survey, after we've provided a little bit more detail about what each of these things actually means for voters and for community members and kids, you actually have growth and support outside the margin of error. It goes from 55 to 61%. Now, I want to be clear, you don't get that just by snapping your fingers. Like, that will involve all of you on this board going out, knocking on doors, being leaders in your community, and really stepping up to make it happen. We've provided voters with a number of different messages, far more than would ever be communicated in any education effort or advocacy campaign. So you would have to work to get there. I would be surprised if we got to 61%, even with the best of efforts, particularly given the headwinds that we're facing with the economy. Staying at 55 is really where, if you decide to put this on the ballot, where I think it will probably remain. And as long as you remain there, you're in a good place. So with that, that's the extent of this presentation. Let's just sum it up and say you have your work cut out for you. You have a lot of economic headwinds that you are facing. That said, where you start is good. We've seen positive movement, significant movement across the board since April. This is really just an effort where you will have to put your best foot forward, go out there and educate. Remember, you have only 47% of your community who are aware of the condition that your facilities are in. So you do have to put the work in, but if you do that, I never say anything's a sure thing, but there is a path. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Jeremy for any thoughts he might have before we open up for questions.
No, I think you said it pretty well, Ben, in terms of, taking, we have an opportunity before us, but it is not a gimme, far from it. And I think it's going to, I think one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is that we have a electorate this November that will be a higher voting percentage than anything we're going to see until 2024, but they're going to be distracted and there's lots of other things on the ballot. So one of our challenges is going to be making sure that at the community level, people understand why this is important, why they need to vote for it, and really educate. And I think everyone on this call is going to be crucial to that task. And people understanding that the bond there's something in every school for it. And as Ben has already said, one of the things in every school is going to be safety and security. This is about safer, healthier, updated schools for all of our children at every school in the district, and then focusing in really energizing the Cornelius community around the opportunity here to replace a 77-year-old school.
I would add just one piece. I mean, that's all the information we have. The piece that we removed to move this dollar amount down was the new alternative school on the David Hill property. And part of our thinking around this is we just are in the middle of remodeling the Taylor Way space. It's moving from 2.5 classrooms to 8 full classrooms. And I just had a chance to walk through that late last week. And it's beautiful. It's turning out really well. And I'm excited. It's less of an issue for us. There's still an issue down the road for us to move that alt school closer to the high school. But I think what we've just done is going to be able to bridge that gap. And so that's why we decided to remove that and then go for this lower bond amount. Eileen, I don't know if I said everything there, but did I leave something out? Oh, I caught her.
No, I think you said everything. It does. I would encourage all of you board members to go and tour it as soon as it gets open after the start of the school year. They've done some amazing things over there at Taylor Way.
And with that, I think we can open it up for questions.
Dave, this is Narsa. My question actually was going to be, because I didn't see in the big green box, the write-up, I didn't see the alternative school, but you answer that. I will say that it's disappointing. It is still very symbolic to have an alternative school on the other side of the tracks. I'm just literally, it's disappointing. I don't think it's in particular for the Latinx community, the majority of the kids are Latinx kids, so they're farly removed from the school and not inclusive. So I understand the politics, but it's a voter, and if I wasn't on the board, I'm not sure that I would vote for it.
Yeah. I can tell you, those are all questions that we're talking about. And the principle that were brought in and kind of the way that they're restructuring the school. They'll have all 4 core subject areas will be taught with original instruction. So there's a lot going on here that I think once we get into the fall and they're able to get out and show what the school's going to be, I think you're going to see it's going to be awesome. So but I understand your concerns.
Yeah, and how do we do that communication before all of this happens?
Yeah,
so it's a marketing issue. It's open houses, it's selling it.
Yep.
Is having also the staff of that particular school be able to reflect the Latinx community. I saw the data, and BIPOC people are voting, based on what was presented to them. So the number's pretty high. I mean, it's comparable, which is exciting. I'm going to assume they didn't have the breakdown of who, but I'm going to assume that quite a few might be Hispanic, but I could be misinformed. So there's going to have to be some really good marketing, open houses. You better get a mariachi over there. You better get some tacos. You better do something.
No, we've actually moved a teacher over there, has great connections to our Latinx community for specifically that reason. So you're going to see a bunch of these pieces coming out in this fall. They're already kind of planning through that.
All right.
Yep.
And just to be clear, yeah, it was heavily Latinx. So it was 12%. There were a few others that like a little bit of Asian, but very, very Latinx.
I have a question for Ben. The numbers that you showed, Ben, on a few slides ago, the net change from, I think, April to now, some of those numbers are pretty big changes.
Yeah.
Is that typical?
It depends is the
Okay.
answer. There's
Okay.
no concrete one.
Okay,
I will say that in some of the other work we're doing, there has been a little bit of a, again, it's not like people love or like what's going on economically, but there's a little bit more of a, they are not comfortable isn't the right word. What was the word I used earlier? It's, you know, they are used to it.
Hmm.
And with gas prices going down, I think that's also starting to impact it. Like that was noticeable when we were in the field. But I also do think, and I understand your school board members a concern in regards to taking out pieces of what we were originally looking at as part of the bond, but the lower bond amount in this economic environment, you know, we don't, it probably is playing a role here too.
If I may add also something, having been a parent of my two youngest daughters attended Cornelius Elementary. So I don't know if there's a possibility of marketing, because if I understood this correctly, you know, Cornelius Elementary would get a big chunk of the if the bond passes, big chunk of the benefit of it, correct?
Correct.
So is there a way to market that and say something like that, or could there be other bullet points and the first initial information that was shared with us that would actually, are we afraid to say diversity? Are we afraid to say this would benefit our historical marginalized, I mean, something sexy about diversity at the beginning. I remember being in Portland Community College and our bond consultants and our administrators, you know, because we knew that, you know, we were in the same sort of situation and we took a risk and we did say this will diversify. The school it's got a diverse children, blah, 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 blah. And people are into that right now, into diversity, equity, inclusion. So is there a way to bump it up a little bit? So
Narcy,
it's
yeah.
the alternative.
So Narcy, there is a political action committee and they have already started into these strategies. And so that group is already getting organized and beginning to look at how we're going to, and which audiences and the rest. And that's part of what they're doing. So that's, yeah, and Jeremy, yeah.
Yeah, and to be clear, Narcy, Ben's polling, what they did like a paragraph explanation of the project, but what our job will be as your bond consultant is to take that and put it into accessible space where we talk about the very things you're talking about. Of course, Cornelius being the largest single expenditure, we're going to have to, we want to, and we want to talk about it as a 95% Latinx school with historically marginalized community. It's just our opportunity to replace the second oldest building in the school district for some of our most vulnerable students. You want to say that, and we will.
Wonderful. I'm just thinking also ahead of time. So I like doing campaigning work. I like knocking on doors. So it's literally having those talking points.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you have them in Spanish language.
Yeah, and we are still looking, I've talked to folks, we still need a board member to serve on the PAC. So that's another thing, perfect. Awesome.
Ben, I was wondering when you presented in April versus recently, when you were talking about, were they the same people or were they different people that you were polling?
They were, I mean, there was an opportunity for people to be the same, but we pull a list of thousands of people across the district and then call into those households and see if we can connect with them.
Second is when you talked in April, did you specifically talk about the alternative school and then now said that we're not going to fund the alternative school last week?
So in the April bond, we did test it, or the April poll, excuse me, we did test it. We did not include it in this poll.
You weren't specific about
taking it out?
We were not going to.
No.
Pardon? I'm sorry, there was a relay there. You did not.
No.
Okay, okay. Like Narcy, since the 1990s, I've been asking for an alternative school for our kids, and I voiced this to Dave too, that I just don't know when we'll ever get an alternative school. And I know they did some remodeling, and I look forward to going over to see it. But I just think it should be included. When I reviewed the things for tonight, I was happy to see that pre-kinder is going to be at all the schools, not just our Title I schools. So for me, that's a real plus, because I think all of our kids need that. But would you say that there's like 50% chance of this passing versus 50% chance of it not passing?
I hate to put numbers on things like that. What I know right now is you've got, based on the snapshot in time, that's what polling is. Please remember that. Like, there's a lot of things that are going to shift these numbers. It will be your education effort. It will be the political action committee. It will be the economy. It will be all of the noise from the other campaigns, and there will be a lot of noise saying economy is bad. All of those things can shift these numbers. So it's a snapshot in time, but right now you have 55% support, which is, again, great to see. It's not something to, break out the banners for, because you're within a 0.1 percentage points of being at 50. It's a definitely, I guess I can say this, it's definitely a lot better than where you were in April with these data.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a comment. I'm just thinking about the last three bonds being around for quite a while. And the last three bonds, we've ended up dropping the alternative school out of those bonds. And it's just interesting that I understand that I haven't gone up and looked at the Taylor Way yet, but I understand the costs and all those other things, but it's interesting that group is always the one that we drop at the end. So just a comment.
Before Mark goes on, I just want to end with, you all know what my passion is for the alt school. And I'm telling you right now, the things that we're putting into place, they're going to be good. I know we don't have it all out there, but I already have a passion for this, and the hiring that we've done, the remodeling that we're doing, it's going to be good. So just laying it out there. I understand.
Dave, it might be a good idea for you to invite some of our Latinx community leaders to do a tour, and and that would be like Maria Rubio and her team, and Bridget, Patricia Alvarado.
So I've looked at the principal's to-do list, and he's already got that on his to-do list. Yep.
Well, I'll make one last comment. Maybe, Dave, and I talked to you today about this too, is that you are passionate about the alternative school, and the 5 board members have been supportive of the alternative school. And the makeup of the board will change before the next 5 years, when we maybe go before board, and we may have a new superintendent then. And will that person have the same passion and drive that the board has and that you have? And that's why I'm real hesitant to I'm real hesitant to vote with this reduction, because I just think that we need alternative kids, space for them. And I know you said the space is terrific, and I know all of that, but it just seems like we're kicking this down the road for the alternative school.
It's a tough choice, but what I'm also saying is that the higher amount, we do not believe we can pass. And we would be the highest taxed property tax. I mean, there's no other school district that would be around us. And that was our issue. I think I said that correctly, Eileen. If I didn't get my numbers exactly correct, but that was the issue, is we don't believe that other one will pass.
I guess my question is, but do you believe this one will pass?
Yes, actually, I do. And just hearing from our PAC around what the strategy is to motivate voters to go to the polls, I believe, yes, actually, I feel pretty positive about that.
If I might, Dave, just as somebody who works on lots of bonds, a $2 per 1,000 increase from your current costs would be one of the single largest increases passed in Portland metro area history, going from where you are today, but adding $2. That would be a bond that we were previously considering the package I included, the alternative high school. I would strongly recommend against that level of increase in this current economy, what we're looking at. And I think the polling numbers bear out that you have a better chance at a lower increase. Do we have a chance of passing bond? Absolutely. If you look in front of you, you started above 50 and you got higher. That's always a place you prefer to be. If you didn't have a chance of passing this as presented tonight, I would tell you. It's kind of my role here. So, I think that it's hard choices. I get it. Not my role as board member, obviously, but just gonna give you a perspective just from what's passed in the past other school districts. You would be among one of the highest, if not the highest, of your neighboring districts, and that would be the single largest increase probably passed in the last 5 years since we did. Yeah, that I'm aware of.
I think I would just add that I don't think anybody's happy about dropping the alternative school off of the bond package here. But this is kind of a repeat, but there's a number of things that are, since the time that we probably got the committee together to start studying what to put on the bond, things have changed. The sands have shifted quite a bit. And we're just in a different spot now than we were, this time last year. Last year, everything was going great guns, and it's changed a little bit now. And so I'm not real happy about it either, but I think that the fact that we're renovating that space now, I think is good. And we're throwing some really good resources at our alternative school, and I think I'm pretty optimistic about that. And so I'm in support of it, and I think hopefully we have a good shot at passing it. So. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, so is there a motion to get to my? Is there a motion? Is a motion to approve?
Can you read the whole thing for us, Mark?
Sure.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. You want me to read not the description, Val? You just
No, at the very bottom it'll say something.
Yeah. Okay. So the administration recommends approval of the attached resolution amendment 21-22 R05 that authorizes administration to proceed with the necessary steps to place the reduced bond measure on the November 8, 2022 ballot.
So could I say I move that we approve that resolution as Mark stated?
Approve the resolution as amended.
As amended.
As amended. And I'll
Okay,
second.
yeah.
And I'll second that. Any discussion or comments before we do the vote? Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote. I am a yes. Let's see, Kate,
Well, I'm a very, very reluctant yes.
okay. And Brad,
Yes.
Narse,
You're
Narse?
muted, Narse.
I'm very conflicted because my first is no, because of what we've talked about. And I'm conflicted because I see the amazing positive for the elementary school and for all the other. And I don't mean to slow the process or anything down, but I feel like I need to say, I feel like there was no other options that we can consider. Like, for example, maybe we don't need to do this, or maybe we cut the corners here for this, or maybe, it's sort of a done deal. Right? So I'm conflicted because I want to say no. But at the same time, I'm conflicted. I'm just very conflicted. And I'm gonna say yes, but it's not like yes, it's a yes.
Thank you. Brad? No, is it Val? I can't remember where I'm at. Brad?
I think we're done.
It's me. Now I need to vote.
It's Val. Okay, that's right. Okay, it's Val. Sorry, Val.
How could you forget me, Mark?
I know, I know. Sorry.
I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passes. And thank you, Jeremy and Ben, for the presentation this evening. I believe that's it for the agenda this evening. So with that, it is 6:19 p.m. and I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone. Good night.